Well, hello and welcome to this week's edition of The Set Piece. I'm Robert Grieve, and with me this week is not Bill Leckie. We have David Friel, who appears to be on social media sites, left, right and centre, everywhere you look. The most popular man at Scottish Sunsport. But Mr. Bill Leckie's not here. A lot going on, David.
It is, but it's good to see you back, Robert.
I'm just back.
You've been Judith Chalmers.
Judith, our younger viewers will have no idea who Judith Chalmers are.
How many countries have you been in the last couple of days?
I've been in a few. I went to 4 countries in one afternoon on Saturday. I was away with Scotland, covering the Scotland game. We'll be touching that in a minute at the end. Yeah, a lot of travelling. Back late last night. If they've got bleary eyes, that's the reason. But there's been a lot going on while I've been away.
Plenty going
on. You've touched on it a wee bit at various points earlier in the week, but what do you make it? Celtic, let's start with Celtic. Honestly, what is going on at that football club? Because they just seem to maybe the statement everyone saw on Saturday night. I was in Hungary when it came out. Brendan Rodgers, where does this leave Brendan Rodgers? David, talk to me about the Celtic manager, because
we're a few days after the statement. We've everyone has had their say on it, and all clearly not good. Brendan Rodgers, where it leaves him, I think Celtic as a club need the football back on. Okay, there probably will be protests, etc. at Rugby Park, but I think they just need to get the ball back out and try and focus on what's happening on the pitch. Where it leaves him, I think he's it's quite a delicate, fragile situation. Clearly, all's not well. And Brendan Rodgers, I think he had a couple of days break. He's back on the training ground. Celtic have posted YouTube footage of the training and all that sort of stuff. And it leaves him in charge of the club. I know there's probably understandably question marks over how long. But as we sit here right now, it's a complex situation, but I think he'll probably stay now.
Stay now, what? What does that mean?
Stay now means, I think now, that he will
beyond this season.
No, he'll not stay beyond the season. No, that's. I think that no. I mean, that's.
I think
not,
if he was going to
start, but my point is, there are understandably questions over whether he will stay in the short term. I think he probably will now.
Yeah, I think if he was going to leave Celtic, he would have done it by now. If he was going to resign on the back of this situation, he surely would have been away by now.
Right.
I think that would have already have happened. So I think the fact that he's still there, I think the fact that you say there's been videos of him taking training, and he actually was obviously in the building, he was giving big hugs and kisses to Iheanacho when he was come in. I think if Brendan Rodgers was going to have reacted to the situation, he would have been away. Personally, I think he probably should have.
Do you honestly think he should have resigned or walked away?
I don't think, we wrote about this and we spoke about this a while ago. I don't think Brendan Rodgers wants to stay beyond this season. I think that's always been his plan, to see out this season and ride off into the sunset. Now, as you say, you touched on it, he wants to go a winner. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I think his biggest task when he came back to Celtic was to win back the Celtic fans, was to get back on side with the Celtic fans. If he walked away the morning after the transfer deadline, he couldn't possibly have been a bigger hero with the Celtic fans. That would have made him. That would have secured his legacy forevermore. So if that's been part of his thinking coming back, it must have been something they thought about. I think it must have been something they thought about, because I think he's now, as you touched on, he's now in a very, very difficult position. He speaks on Friday at his press conference, and I'll be fascinated to see how he handles this, because right now the Celtic fans are against the board. They're against Dermot Desmond, they're against Peter Lawwell, they're against Michael Nicholson, and everyone who's on that board, they're against the PR department for that statement. What does Brendan Rodgers say next? Who does he align himself with? Because the Celtic board will be looking for him to explain their decision making, to support their decision making. I mean, a couple of weeks ago he's talking about how the board and guys behind the scenes bleed Celtic. You know, that didn't get down well with the Celtic support. So in the back of this statement, in the back of the transfer window and how it shaped out, I think, as you say, delicate. Wow, Brendan Rodgers has to choose his words very carefully, and I think it's a very, very difficult situation for him to be in, and that's why I do wonder. That's got to be one of the questions he gets asked on Friday. Did he consider resigning? Because he has to have. For me, it has to have been I'd be astonished if you didn't think about it, if you hadn't thought about it, because so much has happened. And I don't know, listen, as I said, I wrote about it months ago. I wrote a column about it, I think, saying I thought he was going to go at the end of the season, and people were outraged by it, and, oh, you want him out the door. I do not want Brendan Rodgers out the door for Scottish football. I think Brendan Rodgers is fantastic for Scottish football. I think he's good for Celtic. I don't think Celtic can get a better manager than they've got right now. Now, they potentially could, but what I mean is, it'd be very difficult for them. They've got someone who, for me, is top level. Mm-hmm. So, do you know, I think I'm really. How do you think he handles it on Friday?
I don't know how he handles it.
Do you know what I mean? See what I'm saying? You think
I mean, it's
a delicate one.
As I said, it's delicate, complicated. We did go ballistic the other day with Chris Boyd, and I was talking about how is it even a workable situation where you know a manager's going, you know a manager has gone through a transfer window, he's clearly not happy, there's clearly issues behind the scenes. Do you then have a January window, for example, where it's important for Celtic to strengthen when you have a manager in place who isn't going to be there? I get all that. I get actually the argument where a lot of Celtic fans are saying he should have walked away, delivered some home truths, and that would be his legacy in an attempt to change the strategy, whatever you want to call it, the club. I just look at Brendan Rodgers, especially after it happened the first time, and I can understand if he has come to the decision. I agree with you, I think he probably did, because he was undermined as well with Daizen Maeda going, because he did say a couple of days before that Daizen Maeda will not be sold unless there's a replacement in. Daizen Maeda was sold without a replacement being in. However, I just look at it and think that I wonder whether Brendan Rodgers is going, I don't want to go out sniping and moaning. Yeah. And maybe he has a great, maybe he would be well within his rights to do that. I think he'll want to leave as a winner. To me, Brendan Rodgers now, and again, I'm not sure it is a workable situation, but I'm saying if Celtic can come to some form of truce, some sort of peace pact, I think it would be better for Brendan Rodgers' legacy if he can make the best of this situation. Look, if Celtic had signed Kasper Dolberg, for example, Tonecti came too late, Balawisha came too late. My point is, Celtic's squad right now is weaker than it was last season. If they'd signed Dolberg, it would probably have been pretty level, right? Potentially. I think Brendan Rodgers has to look at this and say, I am going to coach better than I ever have in my life. I'm going to leave Celtic at the end of the season with more trophies, and that'll be my legacy. And see if he wants to have his say after that, then have your say. As I said, I don't know if this is a workable situation. I still think there's a couple of twists to come here. However, I can understand if Brendan Rodgers just says, you know what, I'll see this out, I'll get all my players together, let's make the best of this, let's have a season to remember, and then he can have his say.
I think you're right. I think that's what's going to happen, because I think if he was going to go, he'd be away by now. I think it would have happened last week. I think he'd have probably thought about it over a couple of days and decided, right, especially after the statement, you know, it's the Limmy thing, isn't it? They've not backed down, they've doubled down, you know, and we'll not go into the statement, but that just shows the attitude that the people in charge have got, that they don't think they've necessarily done anything wrong. So Brendan Rodgers, for all the messaging that's come out from him in the last number of months, has pointed to, we need to change the way we do things, and it's clear that the people in charge don't necessarily think they can change the way they do things, because they're trying to explain all these mitigating circumstances surrounding why they couldn't get deals done. So if you actually go through their statement, and we're not going to, but it doesn't point to them thinking there's things that they can change.
No.
They just say, well, we can't get deals done because other clubs and other agents and other players, and so you're thinking, well, so if you're the Celtic manager, if you're Brendan Rodgers, you're not reading that and thinking, right, well, they're taking on board what I'm saying, and the whole timing, he kept on talking about the timing of it, they're trying to get deals, but it's got to be the timing of it. The guys, whoever wrote that statement, who wrote the statement?
I don't know.
Nobody knows, right? Whoever wrote that statement doesn't agree with that.
I know. And that's the bigger picture stuff that we've touched on, and it's Brendan Rodgers, it's clear that it's not going to change. He's not going to change it. Right? And that's my point. It comes back to, does he go out all guns blazing and say, I tried to get him to change this?
I don't think he would do that either. But I don't think he would even have to do that. I think if Brendan Rodgers had quit Celtic on Monday morning, he would just have to, quitting the job would have been statement enough.
Oh, it would have been, but it brings you back to your question you asked me, what does he say? I think if Brendan Rodgers comes out on Friday and just lobs in how he's unhappy with this, unhappy with that, unhappy X, Y, and Z, and really goes for it, I think it's over.
Yeah, and I don't think he'll do that.
And I don't really
think he'll do that.
I think, see if he has decided...
I don't think he can do that.
See if he's decided that I'm just going to stay, providing the club, we can work together in some form of way, I'm going to stay. I think there has to be a kind of almost I said it before, a peace pact. It has to be a truce.
But should he do that though, David? Should he do that though? There will be Celtic fans who look at him and think, well, you've just aligned yourself to the board who we're against.
He can do it without praising what's going on. He's not going to insult people's intelligence and say, I was really happy with the window, because he clearly wasn't. My point would be, as you say, he's got questions to answer. Did he consider his position given what had happened? Will he definitely leave it in the season? It's never been said.
Yeah, that's something that has to get nailed down.
It has to. Is he entering the last 9 months of his Celtic
I think the last
contract?
time he spoke about his contract, he said that the club hadn't even offered him a contract. Yeah. I think that's changed. I think in the back of that, I think there were discussions, my information is, there were discussions about a contract, and that it was put to him what that would look like. So I think that has changed. But yeah, I think that has to be nailed down. I think on Friday, one of the things he has to talk about is whether he is staying beyond this season. This can't linger on now for Celtic fans. I think they are due the truth about what's happening next at Celtic, and I think it would actually help Brendan Rodgers also.
It would help the club.
It would help the club for real clarity, for him to come out and say, right, listen, my 6 years is up at the end of the season. I'm going, but between now and then, I'm all in to try and win. I think, and that would give the Celtic fans, I think, time to process that, and I think it would also help clarify this whole situation and maybe help with that truce that you're talking about. Because I think if he doesn't do that, and he gives out and he says certain things that he has said before about, just kind of repeats what he said about how things need to be better and how Celtic need to progress and do things differently in the transfer market, and almost repeats himself, fine, but he's just kicking the can down the road with his own situation, and I think that's a big part of it. I think the Celtic fans are entitled to know now what's going to happen next.
But it's funny because one of Brendan Rodgers, I mean, myself and yourself, Robert, how many times we've interviewed Brendan Rodgers over the years? Hundreds. One of the things he says quite a lot is Celtic are their best when everybody's united, when everything's connected, and from the club, from the board to supporters. That couldn't be further from the truth just now. And if that goes on, the season will just unravel. It genuinely will unravel. That, I don't care what anybody says. See, when there is stuff going on behind the scenes, it filters onto the pitch. It has to filter onto the pitch. We're going to go on and talk about Daizen Maeda. There's other subplots to all this. Other players being left out of squads and players not happy not getting moves. That Celtic can't afford to have any more infighting, any more sniping, both publicly and privately. They have to put on a united front. They have to come to some sort of agreement. I'm talking about Brendan Rodgers and the hierarchy. That, as you said, I think the best thing they can do is come out on Friday or come out before then and say, Brendan's been great, it's not going to continue beyond the season, but between now and then, you make the best of it. I think that's the only thing that can happen.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to be all golden behind the scenes. Probably won't be. But
Celtic can still end up having a good season.
No, they will. Celtic are still favourites for the league. They're still favourites. If you go to any bookies just now and say who's going to win the Scottish Cup, they'll say Celtic should win the League Cup.
Yeah.
You know, Celtic have got a Europa League campaign to go through. Now, every Celtic fan and Brendan Rodgers and even members of the board would say the squad isn't as strong as it should be. However, you know, there's a squad there that can have success this season. I think the biggest barrier to Celtic having success this season is Celtic and the infighting that's going on. If they can get some form of united front, whether it's fragile, whether it's a bit, then I think they can do that. If the fighting goes on and the sniping goes on, it's going to unravel.
You know yourself, there's always, when things are going badly and things are toxic off the pitch, it just needs something on the pitch to go awry. To suddenly it's tenfold. You know, it multiplies itself. Celtic are playing Kelly at Rugby Park. Tough game. You know, the tough pitch. We always go on about the pitch. Celtic, if they kind of stumble there, the Celtic fans who are going to no doubt have banners and be making their voice heard at Rugby Park. If they're struggling against a Kelly team, then you can You know, it's
the most important. To me, it's and like, time will tell. And look, there could be cup finals down the line, Old Firm game, etc. To me, it's the most important game of Celtic season. Robert, you're down there covering the game. It's going to be fascinating off the pitch to see what happens, but on the pitch will shape so much for me, because if Celtic drop anything, if Celtic struggle at all, if they lose, then the noise is just going to get bigger, louder, and everything around it. And that's what I'm saying. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes this week in terms of talks with Brendan Rodgers and those above him. I'm assuming they're going on over the general state of affairs. But if the toxicity around the club just now, all the fans and everything that's going on continues, then, as I say, that I just think it could be a difficult season.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Maeda, Daizen Maeda. Obviously, the story came out a couple of days ago and it was clear, you could see in his body language in the last couple of weeks that he wasn't in a great place. I think that was quite obvious. He thought he was going to move. The move didn't materialise. He's still at Celtic. How do you see this kind of developing?
Difficult.
Because, by the way, he's a huge player for Celtic.
He's a huge player, and again, it comes back to probably a lot of themes we've just spoken about with Brendan Rodgers. Like, Daizen Maeda has made it clear he would rather leave Celtic just now. And I don't think that's a dig at Celtic. He's just ready for the next step, and I don't think any Celtic fan out there would grudge him that. You know, he's a guy who gives his all in terms of his work rate. I think he's been a brilliant player for Celtic, bought for buttons. He deserves a move. It so happened he couldn't get a move. Brendan Rodgers has to get him firing again. He just has to. I don't think for a second that Daizen Maeda will down tools or anything like that. But it's clearly been, of course it has. It's clearly been playing on his mind. And it was really interesting speaking to Chris Boyd earlier about it, because he was adamant that he'll be the last. He says it won't affect him. And Joe Hart also said that. You know, he talked about him being a really matter-of-fact person, that he'll give his all. But it's a huge period for his career as well, because the move that was there in the summer might not be there in January.
I've got sympathy for him. Yeah.
He's got a World Cup potentially.
He's not a young guy, and if he's been promised or some kind of gentleman's agreement that, listen, after so long you can get the move, and if that's not turned out to be the case, then I've got sympathy for players, and it's happened a lot. It's happened before, but
if he'd been sold on deadline day, I mean, can you imagine?
Can you imagine that now? Yeah, 100%. No, so you can understand that, but at the same time, again, that comes back to Celtic's planning and Celtic's the work they're doing. If they've told one of their key players you can go in January, and then they get to the last day of the window and they're having to go to him then and say, by the way, you're not getting that move, then that's poor. That's really poor management. Now, I don't mean from Brendan Rodgers, I mean from the guys who are managing that situation, because you're then left, you're saying, well, we can't afford to lose Daizen Maeda because he's one of our most important players, but you've antagonised him.
I know. It's also a tricky one. Another question, I've got a long list of questions for Brendan Rodgers for Friday. When he asked about Kyogo in January, he said, well, if a player doesn't want to be here, he's better moving on. You asked him about Nicholas Kuhn in June, player doesn't want to be here, he's better moving on.
Daizen doesn't want to be at Celtic.
Doesn't want to be at Celtic, and he's still there. It's a huge test of management. And he's Celtic's talisman. Kelechi Iheanacho, we'll come on to him in a second.
You think that's a good signing?
In the building. Right.
What do you make of that? Talk to me about this one.
I need to make a confession here on our pre-season predictions.
All right.
I said that Premiership top goal scorer
would be Iheanacho.
No, it would be
That'd be a good prediction.
No, it was even better. I'd said it would be Adam Ida, who played about an hour and left.
I remember we spoke about this.
I say it was the Championship top scorer.
Top scorer somewhere for the Republic team.
In a parallel universe, he'd have scored 30 goals for Celtic this season. Iheanacho was a bad, and I don't mean this personally for him, Celtic scrambling about was a bad look. Celtic looking at free agents lists was a bad look. However, he's only 28. He's a Nigeria international. He was playing with Nigeria as late as June. He did a full pre-season with Sevilla. He scored against Schalke, I think, in August, a header for Sevilla. He didn't have a good time at Middlesbrough. He clearly wasn't fit. I think with a pre-season, which he should have had under his belt, I think with a manager who can get the best out of him, playing in a team that creates a lot of chances, I actually think he might surprise some people. I'm not going to say he's going to be a Premiership's top goal scorer.
And you want him as your super sub in your bet then, are you? You want him as, you've lost Daizen Maeda, but he's come on at half time.
Yeah.
You're like, he takes over.
Well, if you want, I'm not going to say, you know what, I will just say, Kelechi Iheanacho,
top goal scorer in the Premiership this season.
I don't think
Come on then, let's hear it.
I don't think he'll be top goal scorer in the Premiership, but I'm going to say he'll comfortably get over double figures for Celtic.
Right, okay.
How do you disagree?
I've no idea, frankly. I've no idea. I'm just being truthful. I don't know. I don't think. I think you're guessing. I don't think there's no evidence.
You don't stay within the Nigeria squad.
There's no evidence to suggest that he's not scored very many goals where he's been in the last while, has he?
Well, he was at Leicester, had a really good spell. Went to Sevilla.
Leicester was a while ago.
But he went to Sevilla for a lot of money in terms of, he was a free agent, but he was on absolute fortunes. It never worked for him. It happens. I'm just saying, people are writing him off before he's even arrived in the building. Genuinely, no, you must admit, it's been a transfer that's been laughed at.
Yeah, it's...
And I think he deserves a lot more respect than that. This is a guy who was, as I said, I'll say it again, he was playing for Nigeria, a very good team, in June.
There's actually quite kind of similarities to the Daizen Maeda signing, because when he came in, it was like, you've signed Daizen Maeda in the last minute, and he turned out he scored decent goals for Celtic tail end of the second half of that season. So yeah, no, listen, absolutely, he's got a bit of pedigree. The guy's played international football. He scored English Premier League goals. He's not over the hill. So, and if he can get fit, that's maybe part of it. Then yeah, there's no doubt he could easily score a decent number of goals in the Scottish Premier League.
I genuinely think it will. And as I said, it's not ideal because Celtic.
It's the perception of it.
Yeah, the perception.
It's the perception.
Plus, Celtic's business model isn't signing guys, and I'm assuming he's on big wages because he certainly was on big wages in Spain. At that kind of, his career is looked to be on the wane. That's fair to say that. Celtic's business model isn't. It's only a 1 year deal. I think Celtic have got an option as well.
Yeah.
And the other reason why I think he'll actually surprise a few people is he's got a manager who he played his best football under. Brendan Rodgers knows exactly how to use him.
Yeah.
He knows exactly how to use him. And as I said, he's going to be playing a team that 90% of the time will have most of the ball, will create numerous chances. He's clearly a good finisher. So I actually think, in a strange roundabout way, Celtic might have got a guy in there that will score them goals.
Yeah, interesting. Time will tell how quickly he can get up to speed as, say, Rugby Park on Sunday. I'm looking forward to that game. You're going to speak to Brendan Rodgers on Friday?
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be fascinating. Genuinely will be fascinating. Really will be interesting to see how he handles this. I think it's a really difficult one for him. What about Rangers?
The best thing that's happened to Rangers in the last 2 weeks is...
There's no football.
There's no football and all the noise at Celtic. I mean, what did we speak at?
The best thing that's happened to Rangers is not play that game.
I know, but I feel as if we spent 3 weeks, a month talking about Russell Martin and Rangers and Nico Raskin.
He needed the window. I know he went on about it and people were almost kind of smacking him with that stick about the whole, because he kept on saying it, we need the window to close. He needed the window to close. I think he needs to sort out the situation with Raskin. I think he will. I spoke about this last week about how, well, he's there, so he needs to get him down in front of him, and they need to have a proper, straight, honest conversation with each other. If that hasn't happened already, I think that has to happen. Similar maybe to the Daizen Maeda situation. I think he has to nail that situation. I think that's huge. You can't afford to have Nicholas Raskin behind the scenes, unhappy, even on the fringes of the squad, training. Like if he's there, he's got to be there. He played for Belgium during the break, scored a goal for Belgium. He scored, didn't he? He scored for Belgium. And I've said it before, he's Rangers' best midfield player. He's Rangers' best midfield player. Where he wants to play is probably different from where Russell Martin wants him to play. So that's maybe the crux of it. Russell Martin, it seems, doesn't want to play the number 6 role, and that's where Raskin clearly believes he should be playing, because I think that's where he's playing. Yeah, it is, and that's where he's playing for Belgium. So you can kind of understand that, but there has to be some kind of compromise, some kind of knocking of heads together for the good of the team and for the good of both individuals. Russell Martin, I don't think, can afford for this situation to linger on. Rangers fans are not going to let that go away if he's kept on the outside. And I don't think I think Russell Martin should be smart enough to try and kind of resolve that I really do.
Oh, 100%. I'm just thinking though we should call this episode of the Set Piece of Peace and Harmony edition because we want everybody to be friends. Let's all be friends, everybody. It's Celtic and Rangers, let's all just get on. Can we not just get on together? But yeah, look, to get back to it, yeah, look, he's a huge player for Rangers, he's a huge asset for Rangers. Rangers need to also protect that. It could still be a bit of a roller coaster, I think, between the two of them.
I think Raskin isn't combustible. I think he's not
a personality.
He's a combustible kind of character, isn't he? So I think, and he speaks his mind clearly. I think that's been the part of the problem as much as anything, that he questions everything. And some managers are happy with that, but other managers, especially when they're maybe under a bit of pressure, they just need somebody to just sit and be quiet for 5 minutes and do what they're told. I mean, me and Bill spoke about this last week, and whatever MD thinks of Nico Raskin and how good he is, he thinks he's top level, and he thinks he's got a justification and a right to question everything. I said it last week and I'll say it again. I think that's not always the case. You know, you can have a high opinion of yourself and you can question decisions that your boss asks you to do, but fundamentally do your job, you know. Do your job. Anyway, but that's, I wonder if that's something, it'll be again interesting. Rangers have got a huge game on Saturday, play Hearts, who will be up for this. Derek McInnes is going to go to Ibrox. He'll be determined to do well in that game. That's another game where actually Hearts, I'm not saying they're under pressure, but they've got aspirations to kick on. Yeah. They want to go and at least compete in that game, and I think they'll fancy their chance. I know they've got a couple of guys missing, a couple of key guys out of the team at the minute, but that's a big...
Hearts win this game, they go 9 points below Rangers. Hearts will get 10 points.
That's a huge incentive for them, isn't it?
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, as I said, it's because there's been so much focus in Celtic for the last week, Rangers still haven't won a Premiership game.
Yeah.
Hearts, I've seen a lot of them this season, and they are a mix of Derek McInnes' teams of old, and they've got a bit of height, a lot of physicality, but they've obviously used the Jamestown analytics really, really well to mine different markets, and they have... The one thing I would say about Hearts is they have so many options at the top end, and we know how fragile Rangers' defence has been. So you've got Lawrence Shankly, you've got Claudio Braga. Watched Kiziridis come off the bench against Livingston a couple of weeks ago. He was outstanding. You've James Wilson.
He can change it, can't he? He can change it.
He's got James Wilson. The standard doesn't drop. He has got other guys there who, Alan Forrest, Blair Spittle, real guys that can get you goals and win matches. Elton Kabangu. He's got 5 or 6, 7, 8 options in attack, and I think Derek McInnes will have that mix. He'll be big at the back, as he always is. Craig Halkett, Stuart Finlay, guys like that. But he's got some ball winners in the middle part, some good players, Beningame, Cammy Devlin, and then he's got people to hurt Rangers at the top end. I think it'll be a really good game.
It will be, it absolutely will be. Here's a question for you: if Hearts go to Ibrox and win, are they serious title contenders? Are they already?
No, for me.
They could go 9 points clear of Rangers.
I think they're contenders to. I don't think they'll win the league. No, I don't think they can.
You know what I'm saying? Will they win the league? But will they be in the?
I think they should be in the conversation to be as close as they possibly can to the top two, and I think they'll probably finish closer to the top two than any team has in recent memory. Whether they can split the old film,
even if they win, you think you would still
we were over this last year with Aberdeen, and I think Hearts are more robust and solid than Aberdeen were last season. I always said at the start of that season that was a flash in the pan. And I think Aberdeen kind of levelled out. I think Hearts will prolong it a lot more. I think they've got a better manager for a start, and they've got a lot more depth. They don't have European football, and they're obviously out the League Cup as well, which should. But I think if you speak to Derek McInnes, while he's taken on the ambition and he's happy to embrace all that, I still think he won't want to. He doesn't feel that Hearts have earned the right to go to places like St Mirren, to Tannadice, to Easter Road.
It's still a work in progress.
It's a work in progress, and I think he's, taking on the hype and the pressure is kind of trying to dampen expectations a little bit.
I think he's the perfect manager for them for that very reason, because I think if it was, remember years ago with George Burley, and there was at that point, maybe at this point of the season, they'd won all their games, and you're thinking, this could be it. And there was nothing against George Burley. I think he was a perfect manager for us at that point as well, but he was good for them because he kind of, you say, tempered that expectation, and obviously what happened with Romanoff getting rid of him. But I think Derek McInnes is probably the ideal guy just to, I can imagine behind the scenes he's he's pretty level-headed.
I do, and I think at home they'll be really, really strong. This is a huge test for them on Saturday, clearly. But look, see if they frustrate Rangers, get the first goal.
It's crazy to think, isn't it, that Rangers could be, like, in theory, another game if they don't win, you know, that's like...
That's what I'm saying, it's kind of been forgotten, and I suppose Russell Martin, again as well, you were thinking, well, he's going to international break, you want to get to that and you get a bit of time with his players, but a lot of Rangers players, actually more Rangers players than you think, have actually been away on international duty. However, I know that you're always crossing your fingers as a club manager, are they going to get injured or that? I actually think that an international break might be quite good. John Sutter was outstanding.
Yeah, it was.
You have Telo Asgard's just scored 4 goals for Norway, unbelievable. Nico Raskin scores. Cornelius scores, absolute cracker. You get Majovski was away. Jaden McComa was away, I think, a game of the 21s or the 19s for England. So you have players who have been away playing and actually get a wee bit more. You've got Chermiti, we've not seen him yet. Is he going to get some game time? Antman's been away. I do think that he's probably not had his full squad together as he'd have hoped for, but the guys that have been away for the large part, I think, have done well. And Telo Asgard, unbelievable.
And crazy, isn't it?
Absolutely. 4 goals. Erling Haaland giving him the ball to go and take the penalty for his hat-trick. I think he's kind of flattered the disease since he came in at Rangers, but
I know
you're trying to kind of wonder, there's a player there, but you wonder what his position is. But look, he's come on, and if he's not full of confidence,
he should come back buzzing, shouldn't he?
He should come back buzzing, and surely he's going to start against Hearts. In terms of the international, Scotland going to the World Cup. Passport looked out again?
Well, let's come to it because I'm just back. I had planes, trains and automobiles to get. Four countries in one day.
Poor Robert, everybody.
4 countries in one day on Saturday. I flew from Copenhagen to, let me get this right, Munich. So Denmark to Germany, Munich to Graz, so there's Austria, and then we drove from Graz to Hungary. 4 countries in one afternoon.
What's business class like these days?
You're kidding. You're absolutely kidding. Business class. I was almost in the wing. But a great trip. We had a good laugh actually. In Scotland, 4 points, 2 games. The next game against Greece at Hampden is going to be monumental next month. Belarus after that. If we can win the next 2 games.
I'm starting to get excited.
I tell you what,
I'm starting to believe.
I think everything's gone under the radar a little bit. Last week I got that impression. Obviously, what we've just been speaking about. There's been so much been going on with Celtic, Rangers obviously in the background as well. That's been the kind of the talk, it seems. But I think it's going to kick on if we can win that next game against Greece, and it's wide open because I wouldn't have put money on Greece going to Denmark going to Greece and winning.
I think that game fixtures have actually worked out pretty well for Scotland, and getting the draw in Denmark was huge. Really professional performance. Thought Scotland played well against Belarus. The Greece game, everything hinges in the Greece game. It just does. You beat Greece, you beat Belarus at home, and you're then looking at
winning the group.
And it could come down to if you do beat Greece, it could come down to a winner takes all against Denmark.
Denmark last game, you would take that right now.
So I am starting to.
If you win the next 2, if Scotland win the next 2 games, it's then Greece and Athens, November, and you could, in theory, go and get a point there, and then Denmark, Hampden, 50,000.
We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but
oh no, I'm ahead of myself. But get flights booked to Miami.
What I would
let's go
business class.
What
I would say is it looked like Steve Clarke's Scotland team, and too often in the last while it's not looked like Steve Clarke's Scotland team.
I've been kind of teetering with Steve Clarke. Teetering, is that the right word? Teetering with Steve Clarke. They say that carefully. I've liked him. I think he's been a good Scotland manager. I think you can't fault him. We got to back-to-back tournaments. We weren't going to tournaments. I think people are now too quick to kind of dismiss that. We stunk the place out at the last tournament. Don't get me wrong. No one was more disappointed about that than me. That we come home and we did. The performances were nowhere near good enough. That said, I think a lot of the players in that tournament were jaded. They were tired. They were leggy, they were lethargic, too many of our key players. And speaking to 1 or 2 of them in the last few days and watching the performances, and Denmark could have even been better if Lyndon Dykes has just got the confidence to step onto that chance and slot it away. We could be sitting here with 6 points. I know if your granny had whatever, but I think the players, I think the key players, your Andy Robertsons, your John McGinns, your Dykes, your Adams, your Grant Hanleys. I think these boys have almost had a reset. They've almost had to give themselves a shake to realise this is it. I mean, John McGinn spoke about it. He spoke really, really well before the game in Hungary the other night. This is his last chance to get to a World Cup. And he's not the only one. And I think they've genuinely kind of almost given their head a wobble, you know, to realise this is it. We cannot afford to wait for this to happen. We need to go and reach out and grab it. And I tell you what, Denmark, Greece, they're decent teams, but
it's not
in Italy or Spain.
I think you're just going for a playoff. No.
So I think they're reaching out to grab it. And I think that's all we can really ask for. And as much as Steve Clarke was absolutely open to criticism for the team's performances at the last Euros, I think there was an element of the players kind of, nobody was at it, none of them were at it. I think it was just a perfect storm for everything to go wrong. And I just say it looked like a Steve Clarke Scotland in the last two games. The Denmark game, we didn't start particularly well, but then they grew into it. And then, you know, I thought he picked the wrong team personally before the game. But then you very quickly realise, see what he's doing here, don't mind it. I think he picked the right team for the game in Belarus, against Belarus. Doak gives us something different. You know, Ben Gannon Doak, he's got energy, he's got pace, he's got enthusiasm, he works back the way, he doesn't just go one way. A couple of times he was racing back and winning headers to defend his guy. He's somebody that kind of gives you that.
He's going to be so important these next
X factor, you know.
As well. You need somebody to take you up the pitch.
Bigger pitch. He's got this fearlessness about him. I think he's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm genuinely excited. I think. Do you know what? We're going to qualify for the World Cup.
You heard it
here first. Steve Clarke and the lads are going to qualify for this World Cup, and I tell you what, we're going to do it by winning the group.
I think so.
We're not going to be a playoff. Forget it. No, we're winning the group. We're going to get 6 points for the next two games. We'll get a point in Greece. We'll pump Denmark. At Hampden. Not just beat them. We're getting pumped. And
that's going to go viral in Denmark.
And I know, they're hating me. No, I stand by it. I'm going to get shot down here when we lose the next game. But no, I genuinely think these players have got the bit between their teeth. And I think we're going.
Forget John McGinn, Grant Hanley, you've done reset, Robert. You're full of enthusiasm.
I've come back bubbling with it. I genuinely think
peace, harmony, and love.
I've been at a World Cup. I've covered the World Cup. I want to go to a World Cup with Scotland now. I mean, be great, wouldn't it?
Be good.
Mexico, Canada, America. Magic.
Here's hoping.
You think? What do you think? Do you think we can do it?
Huge chance. That's what I'm saying. I'm starting to believe. I'm not going to infuriate the entire Danish nation by saying that Scotland will, in your words,
it's the worst thing now.
But
Thomas Gravison turns up at my door.
But yeah, confident. Let's go for it.
Let's go for it. Right, that's us for this week. Thanks very much for joining us. As ever, comment section below. There's been some brilliant comments last few weeks. I've been reading through them. A lot of good feedback. Let us know what you think. And like and subscribe also. You be back next week, or is it Lecky? Bill Lecky's got some shoulder issue. He's away seeing the doctor. We're not sure what's happening with him. But anyway, David's a decent stand-in. I'm sure you'll agree. He's on the social media channels every day of the week, it seems. So you're probably fed up listening to him. I know I am. But let us know what you think of David's comments. And we'll catch you at the set piece next week.